Gabe Sheet.
Nice to meet you. Hello.
Gabe Sheet. Gabe Sheet.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, again.
Please be seated. My name is Judy Simpson, and I am one of the people who brought Native people to the state of Nevada, and I'm very proud to have trained Mr. Oaks and Mr. Tomas at Luso from your school, and I hope you do well today.
Good morning. My name is Michael Douglas. I'm a justice on the Nevada Supreme Court.
My name is Peggy Lean. I'm a United States Magistrate Judge.
My name is Michael Green, and I just showed up. Professor of History, College of Southern Nevada. Come down south. We'll see you next year.
The following was paid political.
Yes. I approve of this message.
We have selected question number 1 for you. The weakening of the older social hierarchy and the erosion of the traditional belief in the elite rule made the rise of political parties both necessary and possible. Do you agree or disagree with this opinion recently expressed by an American scholar? What evidence can you offer to support your position? How would you distinguish between a faction and a political party, and how important is that distinction? How do political parties in a democracy differ from ideological parties, and why are those differences important? You may begin.
According to political science professor E.E. Schacht-Schneider, political parties created democracy, and modern democracy is unthinkable save in terms of parties. The founders, however, did not believe a party system was viable, but the American belief in individualism and the growth of the country made political parties a more practical option for the election of officials because their generalized platforms overcome regionalism by providing a constant connection for people across the country with similar interests.
This belief in a republic can be seen in the continual expansion of suffrage. We agree with Gordon S. Wood that the weakening of the social hierarchy and traditional belief in elite rule when our democracy was formed led to the rise of political parties. Parties in America grew from the idea that government should represent the people. Colonial governments affirmed the place of Republican government with extensive voting rights, but trust was still vested in the elite, as those few of the eligible to vote still voted for the same families.
Only during the period of salutary neglect, when these families lost authority from the crown, did the ruling elite turn to the only other viable source of authority, the people, to maintain power. The elite encouraged people to come out and vote for them, but once these voters mobilized, it was difficult to keep them from voting for officials more representative of their communities than the detached, established elite.
These new voters naturally organized into parties as the number of voters grew, and the importance of centralized ideas became more important than regional ideas, especially with the advent of federalism. The permanence of the right to have political parties was solidified with the First Amendment rights to free speech and association.
Political parties are groups with generalized platforms of social and economic ideals and policies. These platforms are broad, so the most possible voters identify with them. These parties can then oversimplify and become detached from individuals, such as in the United States, where most opinions are quickly sorted into either conservative or liberal categories. Issues are rarely so cut and dry, and the solutions cannot be decided on party lines. This disparity between the big parties and specific problems creates a void that third and ideological parties fill.
While large parties have mass appeal, ideological parties are often more specific and unorthodox in their policies and ideals. The Communist Party believes in a command economy, and the Libertarian Party supports radically hands-off government. These parties are relatively powerless on a national level compared to the established parties, but can be influential on a local level. Federalism creates an environment where two parties are easy to maintain, but other democracies like Italy function with coalition governments with multiple parties with more specific platforms.
James Madison defined a faction as people of common interests adverse to the rights of other citizens or the aggregate interests of the community, such as the farmers' lobby, which represents less than 1% of Americans but got Congress to make pizza a vegetable. Madison's factions have key weaknesses, being too small to see their agendas materialize in the check and balance system. it was assumed that there would be many factions instead of the two-party system of today where powerful majorities often occur. Because these parties are in constant danger of becoming factions, the competitive power struggle between them is necessary to check their powers.
Their main purpose, then, is to hold the government accountable, as Brutus suggests the people ought to, by providing a middleman between the government and the people that offers an alternative to the party in power. The majority party enjoys popularity followed by failure constantly. Power has shifted 29 times in the House, and blocks of voters can swing to another party, such as the black vote shift from Republican to Democrat during the Civil Rights Movement. Unlike factions, parties work for the common good. Federalist 70 states, parties promote deliberation and circumspection, and serve to check excesses in the majority.
This ability for civil discourse and compromise among competing interests is an important distinction between factions and political parties. Other than preventing one another from becoming factions, the major parties also control smaller parties by absorbing extremists on both sides, as when the traditionally conservative Republican Party mostly absorbed the Tea Party's powerful movement.
Though useful, political parties can be controlled by an elite, as George Washington warned in his farewell address. They are likely to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be able to subvert the power of the people, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. Thank you.
I'll go back to the beginning as the historian. Why did most of the founders fear and oppose political parties?
Founders generally feared political parties because they were a manifestation of traditional direct democracy or mob rule, and that the majority was feared even more than a tyrannical monarch at the time.
Though most of them feared them and their potential for becoming factions, since that's essentially how they were viewed, some of them thought that they could have a good place in our political system. For example, Alexander Hamilton thought that parties could be helpful in getting this idea of civil discourse and discussing both ideas of an issue and forming the best opinion. But he thought that once a compromise was reached, each side should stop.
They also probably believed that political parties could take advantage of the check and balance system. And since we have a president who confirms nominees to the Supreme Court and other positions through the Senate, if a political party took control of perhaps both the presidency and the Senate, they could also take control of the court system. Or out of alliance that a party may have with interest in a foreign government, they could sign treaties that might favor a foreign government over the interests of Americans.
How has the United States Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United and the emergence of the super PACs influenced our political party system?
It has had a tremendous effect on our political party system because donations to super PACs go through nonprofit organizations, and the amount of money that goes to those nonprofit organizations and then indirectly to super PACs is unlimited on how much money can be spent. And so that money can be added in addition to money that the party system gives to candidates. And since that money comes from outside the parties, that money can also come from what James Madison might have described as a faction.
I'd like to quickly just add on to that. In a debate earlier, one of the many, all four, well, I guess at that stage there were still 8 candidates. Every one of them said they absolutely hated the super PAC idea. Why?
Well, the super PAC makes campaigning very, very difficult. And it makes you have to do things you might morally object to in order to win. None of the candidates like using super PACs, but they know if they don't use them, someone else will take advantage of that and they will win. Like Mitt Romney is known for having a large amount of money, something around $200 million, in addition to a super PAC, which is said to have raised $350 million. And however, Newt Gingrich has also had to form a super PAC in order to compete with Mitt Romney.
Which is where I was going to go with your original question. It's definitely hurt the Republican Party because they do look foolish and they do look hypocritical because both Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney have attacked each other for attacking each other and basically posting slander ads. Like Newt Gingrich says Mitt Romney and his super PAC, but Newt Gingrich has his super PAC, so they are hypocritical, and it's a mockery of our political system.
I think part of the reason these candidates are speaking out against political parties is because though they rely on them so much, the public is kind of becoming aware of this silly idea that they're not connected at all, that the super PACs aren't listening to what the candidate is saying and doing everything they can to help the candidate they support. So, but they're trying to please the public, which has caught on to is starting to catch on to how silly the whole thing is.
Hatred is good.
Continuing along with that, you talked about the super PAC and its influence on these campaigns. What do you think about social media and the web? Has it changed how campaigning is done? Does it have any effect as to what's being decided out there?
It has, because on the internet, it's easier to put lots of information out there that may be not necessarily true, as opposed to TV news media. They have more requirements and are more likely to post information that is true, whereas people can put their opinions on the internet and call it news.
I would disagree with Shane because based off of the fact that Wikipedia has a higher accuracy rate than Encyclopedia Britannica, because so many people are able to post their information, you have people that are truly dedicated to going onto that site and making sure the information is correct. And when you have literally millions of people doing that, you get the most direct and truthful facts you can.
I think social media is really important because, like Gabe was saying, that you bring together all these different opinions and facts, and the more ideas you have, and if you're willing to listen to this and accept different ideas and compromise them possibly with your own, you have the potential for really coming up with a more informed citizenry and just more able to solve problems. I think you just have to be aware that what one side is saying isn't the full picture, and you need to educate yourself about the other side, because there is this tendency to just focus on the side of the argument you agree with.
Additionally, I think YouTube is a very, very powerful example of social media, because you can show someone being very, very passionate about a political issue, and everyone can see that in action. For example, Ryan Schweitzer, the governor of Montana, recently gave a very pumped up speech about him vetoing a Republican effort to require photo IDs in order to vote. And he was saying things like, they think there's too many people voting over here in Montana. I don't think that. And at the end of that video, he takes a brand as if he was branding a cow, except the brand says VETO for veto. And he brands a veto onto the bill and burns it.
Judge Lane and I are both very impressed with that it took 24 hours to change the Susan G. Komen decision, by the way. So showing the power of...
I was impressed too.
Oh, okay. Why do we have a two-party system? We're the only nation in the world that does. The only one
We're not the only nation in the world that has a two-party system.
that works.
Sorry. Well,
Details.
for example, Great Britain had a two-party system from essentially World War II until a couple of years ago when they entered into a coalition government, and that was simply just because the Conservative Party did not gain a majority, and they decided to get into a coalition with the Democratic Party. Not because the two-party system was declining, but because out of a show of maybe bipartisanship. Although those two parties are quite different, they wanted to work together for the common good.
There's a political scientist who came up with this law, and it's Duverger's law, and it basically says that if you have a simple majority, as we do, like the winner-takes-all thing that you see with the Electoral College, or that representatives, it's not proportional representation as in the United Kingdom, but the winner is the one wholly represented and no lesser interests, lesser parties are represented, then you almost inevitably end up with a two-party system, because they don't get anything, it's winner-takes-all.
We have as we allude to, a two-party system basically because of federalism, because you have local and state and national governments, and because you have to broaden your platform as you go up to the national level in order to get as many votes as you can across, say, I don't have any idea what the people in Iowa think, but I know that what their liberals may think or what their conservatives may think, because their platform is generalized, and I can go to the party and ask them what their platform is. That is what gives us a two-party system.
Are there any advantages to a multi-party system? Since every country that's been founded since the breakup of the Soviet Union has chosen a multi-party system.
I think the multi-party system is valuable in that since there isn't always a party with a clear majority, that it does kind of encourage cooperation, because in order to have a big enough vote to have their agenda materialize, they need to cooperate with other parties.
I agree with Katie. I think that although our founding fathers made us believe that a two-party system may have checked factions. A multi-party system can do that just as well, because sometimes you might have ideological parties that are very specific in their ideals and beliefs, but you also may have groups of two different parties who might have very similar ideals, such as perhaps the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party in the United States, or the New Democratic Party and the Liberal Party in Canada.
We have about 50 seconds left. Fix Congress. Okay, go.
I was going to say that you can look at the advantage of a coalition government in the parliamentary system in that because there are multiple parties, it forces those parties to work together to get a majority, and there's the advantage of the seamless switch of the government because of the shadow cabinet system.
In order to fix Congress in the most practical way, I think we should impose term limits on them. I think that has been very effective at the state level. For example, here in Nevada, assemblymen are limited to 6 2-year terms and senators 2, 3, 4-year terms, and that makes it more likely for the parties to switch power. So it makes it harder for one party to dominate for a long period of time, and it encourages more civil discourse and more cooperation.
And also with term limits, it's the candidates aren't necessarily relying on winning the next election, and which they essentially need the support of the party to do. These parties that focus so much on making sure their candidates have seats in Congress. And so if they're not focusing on that next election and trying to still have the support of their party and the people, then they'll be more likely to do what's best for the people and not themselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really like that you took the risk of having strong opinions. You know, there's always a risk in that. And if you expressed them well, supported them well. I liked what seemed like an incredibly simple reference to the First Amendment. That's the whole issue when you come right down to it. Free speech and freedom of association. And I just wish to offer one thought. There was a cynical thought expressed. Pizza is a vegetable.
Okay.
I've been working on that on my wife for several years.
He's still in my
Well, you gave a good contrast between the historical evolution of the political party system and when our founders had conflicting views about the political party system and whether they were, how it was likely to develop. And you contemporized some current examples of things that are happening today by referring, for example, the number of power shifts in the House, and I thought you did an excellent job of both keeping the historical underpinnings of the two-party system and the roles of factions in our system and contemporizing it to today's time.
I especially enjoyed the opening, the use of historical, touching on the Federalist Paper, touching on the First Amendment, the responsiveness, the willingness to go on and on. As the quasi-politician on this panel, as an elected judge in the state and someone who sat through the last legislative session, I would just note as to term limits, we had a brain drain in Carson City. That's one of the things to think about. You as voters always create term limits by vote in this exercise.
We had, do you know what he was talking about? Every major senior legislator turned out last time. And so with all this crisis that was going on, there was nobody there to say, wait, this is historically or anything like that. So that's all I can say.
We did see that because Bill Raggio, who used to represent a lot of us in the state legislature from Reno, he was turned out last year, and that caused a lot of problems, especially in his
Well, he lost his leadership position, so he was really turned out. I love that you had the guts to correct me. It's very brave to do.
Yes, it is.
And you are absolutely correct in doing so, but they're not they're a multi-party system now. You said one statement in your opening statement that I was like, what? And I just want you to know, just personally, I really disagree with it. I do not think that factions always work for the common good. I think that there's some factions out there that are absolutely dreadful. The Nazi Socialist Party, for example, which has tried to create its own party and that kind of thing. So I would be kind of careful when you make a general statement like that. Even if you would have just said factions generally work for the common good, you would have been a whole lot better off than just a flat-out statement, or I just may have misheard you. So
Did we say that?
I may have misheard you.
Oh,
But
okay.
as a judge, the most important thing you did was you made your point and you followed up with why you made that point. That's what this dialogue is about.
You're terrific. You just give yourselves a round of applause.
Send them down to teach. Okay. Thank you. No, thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, that's it.
I don't think they did very well. They did very well.
Yes, always a good sign. Don't think you did.
Oh.
It's always a good sign when you think you did well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
How do you sit down if this ball's that big? Oh my god! Actually, she not. I was like, oh,
He used the Montana. We watched it. Last night we were watching it. Yeah.
Two to go, baby. We got 2 to go. I just actually.
How do you get
I know you can't lose that.
These are comfy.
No, you go first. My hands are shaking so bad I can't say it. I know, but
Let's go, you two.
I can give you first. And I'm looking for it. There we go. I don't get text messages the whole time. I mean, as soon as the judge starts giving comments, hey. Let's do this. Let's do this. Action!
a couple minutes, need some water.
You did. All right, let's go, huh? Yeah, got it.
We were just throwing stuff away. It was behind that radio on board, right? Yeah, she was like,
What'd she say?
maybe she. I didn't mean to. I was throwing stuff away. And it was, the trash can was next to her. And she started talking to me. I didn't say that.
And then just go back to
Oh yeah, he was running back into the car.
I know you guys do partly. Oh, I'm so proud. There's one sitting up there. The pole.
Cheese with a G on it.
Don Wall. Don Wall.
So what happened over
I remember one time we were all